Hey everybody, welcome back to my kitchen. I'm Ken, and today I want to show you, after many requests, how to make a truly authentic and traditional moussaka. I made this a few ways. I've made it with low carb, I've made it with microwaves, I've made it with baking in terms of the veggies. Well, today I want to show you the way they did it back in the day in the village, or even today where they make it using very simple ingredients, but the truly traditional method, which does mean it's not low cal, it's not low carb, but it's super delicious. So very simply, to start us off, you're gonna break this recipe down into 3 stages. It's slicing up and frying our eggplant and potato, preparing the meat sauce, the bechamel, putting everything together and baking it off. It really is that simple. So first things first, fired up my frying pan. I'm going to be using about a cup of olive oil to do my frying in. I know it sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. And again, traditionally, Greeks do everything using olive oil. First things first, I'm going to start with my potatoes. These aren't very big potatoes, so what you want to do is slice them about 1/4 inch thick and put those off to the side. So now that our potatoes have been sliced up, very carefully place them in your pan. You don't want your pan too hot or your oil too hot. That'll burn your, it'll start smoking, but you don't want it cool enough that what you're frying will actually absorb the oil and make it really, really heavy. So slowly and carefully start adding in your sliced potatoes, and they don't need much. They only need about 3 or 4 minutes on each side. While those are frying off, I'm going to grab a plate and I'm just going to make some room here. And what I'm going to do is stack up some paper towel. One of my favorite, actually, what the hell, I'm going to take the whole roll. And what you do is just place some paper towel down wherever you're going to place your fried ingredients, so that way the paper towel will absorb the excess oil. So now that our potatoes are sliced up and they've actually started frying, a good idea would be, it's all about time management. So I would take a bowl, take some of your sliced up potatoes that you haven't fried yet and put them off to the side. That way you can start slicing up your eggplant and speeding things along. Slowly start flipping over your potatoes, and these will probably be another minute or 2 on the other side and they'll be good to go. Our eggplants, look at these beauts. These are like fantastic. I love working with eggplant. I love eggplant in general. It's such a fantastic vegetable. You can make it in like a million dishes. So we're going to take our eggplant, and let me get a bigger knife here. And what you're going to do is, again, same deal as the potatoes. Very thinly slice your eggplant, 1/4 inch strips. Now this is where the temperature of your olive oil is super, super important. If your olive oil isn't hot enough, eggplants typically are like a sponge. They'll absorb it and they'll be like, first of all, you'll be left with no olive oil in your pan. And second of all, once you have this, it'll be sitting like a brick in your stomach because it's going to be so heavy. Again, the same deal applies with our eggplants. What you're going to do basically is set up another dish or another plate. Oh, there goes the end of my roll. And the paper on the bottom of your plate will also help absorb the oil from your fried eggplant. Leave those there and continue working. Now, if you notice in my pan, there really isn't that much olive oil missing, only because it's hot, it's being used to fry, but it's not being used or not being absorbed. Man, this is going to be so good. I can smell it already. And this moussaka here is like so freaking delicious. It's unbelievable. In fact, this is like I'll have a piece of that strap a treadmill to my ass. That's how good this is. Alrighty then, so now the first part is done. Our potatoes and our eggplants have been sliced up, they've been fried up, ready to go. Gonna fire up our element here. For our tomato sauce now, I'm using a few glugs of our Greek extra virgin olive oil and a 1.5 pounds of lean ground beef. And we're gonna slowly just start crumbling that up into our pan. Now remember, once you touched raw meat, soap and water to wash up with. Believe me, makes things a lot easier, especially on the healthcare system. All right, so now that our ground beef is simmering or browning away, I've chopped up one onion. That's gonna go in along with our beef. Very easy, nothing to this at all. Along with this, I'm going to give this a real quick stir actually, and leave that in there. A generous amount of pepper, a decent amount of salt. This is not a low sodium recipe, so a little bit of salt goes in there. Give that a nice stir. And this sauce is going to be on the thicker side. This isn't one of those runny, soupy sauces, whatever. This is a nice, thick, almost like a ragu style sauce. Next is a few cloves, typically 1 or 2. I like to go generous, so I'm just going to chop up about 3 or slice up 3 cloves of garlic. I love garlic. Garlic and cheese are something that you can't have too much of in a recipe. So now we have our ground beef, our garlic, and our onions browning and sauteing down. The next part of this sauce is a couple of bay leaves from Greece. In my olives, I have like wild bay trees growing, or bay bushes. So a couple of bay leaves go in. The Greek element now. 2 little cloves go in for our sauce. I know it may not sound like a lot, but a little goes a long way when it comes to cloves. And the super Greek element is some cinnamon. And for this, you're going to use about 1/2 teaspoon to 1 teaspoon, depending on your love of cinnamon. But typically, I would go for a teaspoon into our browning beef, or ground beef that is. Perfect. And let those kind of flavors start to kind of purge. Oh, this is what it's all about here. That is fantastic. Let that go for about 5 or 10 minutes until it actually starts browning and tightening up. All right, and the next part of this is our crushed tomatoes. They're gonna go in, and we're gonna go about 28 ounces of beautiful crushed tomatoes. And because it's a thicker sauce, we're just adding our crushed tomatoes. We're not adding any water, and just let that cook for a few minutes just to combine all the flavors. All right, so it's been now about 10 minutes or so. Our sauce has tightened up beautifully. So the next part of this now, and it only takes a couple of minutes, is actually my favorite part, and the fun part is the assembling of the actual moussaka layers. Typically for this, what you're gonna do is, or what I do, is I put my potatoes on the bottom, sauce and eggplant over that, sauce, and then the bechamel. So we're gonna take a little bit of our sauce and just kind of baste or kind of coat the bottom of our pan so our potato layer doesn't stick. And you don't need much, just a little bit. And that's perfect right there. Now, potatoes first. So, you're going to use like a bunch of paper towels for this, but it's going to be worth it in the end. Slowly take your potatoes and just start placing them in even layers along the bottom of your pan. When you make this and your friends bite into this for the first time, this has summer in Greece written all over it. You've gone to those little seaside restaurants, you know the ones I'm talking about. You walk down by the water, and they have their menus out, and what do you see on their menu boards? Moussaka, and you go and try it. And that's the flavor and the taste and the memory that we're going for here today. So nice layer of potatoes goes down. All right, so now our first layer of potato is in. I'm going to take my sauce and put like a nice generous coating of tomato sauce down over my potatoes. And this is like half the fun here, is like putting this thing together. Alrighty, perfect. Just like that. A little bit more. And you don't want to chintzy on the tomato sauce, because this is what actually gives you all your flavor and all the goodness. So just put that even, just like that. So the next part of this recipe is the breadcrumb factor. And for this, I'm using a cup of breadcrumbs, and these are my own seasoned ones. And what I'm going to do is just evenly spread a layer of breadcrumbs over your sauce, just like this. Perfect. That's awesome. That's there, ready to go. And now we're going to go ahead with our eggplants. Eggplants, a staple, an absolute staple in Greek cooking. Look at these gorgeous eggplants. Love it. Absolutely love it. All right, so there goes our last bit of eggplant, all layered in there. Now, imagine how much olive oil these paper towels have absorbed here that would have gone into your dish. And yeah, olive oil is delicious and it's got a lot of flavor, but you don't want it to be like sitting like a brick in your stomach. So again, layer of tomato sauce goes on, nice and even over this. My kitchen, I can't tell you. Oh, now, as well, bay leaf, remove them. Believe me when I tell you, you don't want to be enjoying a beautiful moussaka and next you know, you or one of your guests bites into that leafy deliciousness, and next thing you know, it's like not the greatest thing. So, put our meat sauce all over just like that. All right, now that our sauce is on our eggplants, time to layer up with the breadcrumbs are on top. And there we go for that. That's perfect. Now, my friends, we're ready for the bechamel. So the last part of our moussaka is the topping, one of my personal favorites, which is the bechamel. And typically and traditionally, the bechamel is made with equal parts of butter and flour, while in Greece and traditionally, or in the olden days, or back in the day, whatever you like, they used equal parts of Greek olive oil and flour. So to start us off with our roux, I'm going to put in about 1 cup of our Greek extra virgin olive oil and 1 cup of all-purpose flour goes in, and we can start cooking that down. And what I like to use for my bechamels is a whisk. Also, while we're doing our bechamel now, we're kind of getting there close to the baking part of our moussaka. A good idea would be to preheat your oven 375 Fahrenheit or about 180 degrees Celsius, and get that preheating and warming up, because this won't take long, just enough to get this all nice and thick and together. All right, so now our bechamel is coming along nice. We have our roux actually well on its way. We're going to incorporate, listen, for my dear friends that aren't from Canada, this is how we get our milk, in bags. And there goes my oven. This is how we get our bags. Cows just squat right into the bag. You got beautiful milk. So we're gonna include, slowly add to this, about a liter of milk. So now we have about a liter of milk in here. We're gonna take a little bit of cracked pepper, a little bit of salt will go in this as well, just like that. And no bechamel is complete without a little bit of nutmeg. And for this, I'm gonna do about 1/8 of a pod, or maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon if you have the pre-grated nutmeg. And that's perfect right there. All right, as this thing is going now, the next part of this is 2 egg yolks. So you're just gonna separate the egg yolks from the egg white. Perfect, just like that. Put them into a little dish. And here goes number 2. And again, people, my friends, if I can do this, you can do this too. There go our egg whites. Give this a little bit of a stir. A little bit of pepper goes in there. That's perfect. And just give these a real quick whisk, just to kind of break up the yolks. Put them in there. Throw them into your bechamel. So by adding the 2 egg yolks, you're gonna give your bechamel a rich velvetyness, and it's gonna be absolutely magnificent. Now going back to our moussaka here that's all ready to go. Very simply, give that a quick stir, and let's get ready to do a little pouring. This is one of my absolute favorite parts. Let me just grab my spatula and get some of that goodness. We don't want any of this going to waste at all. And that's perfect, just like that. Fantastic. This, my friends, is a moussaka fit for a king. Now, what I like to do is just jiggle it around a little bit. Make sure your bechamel gets everywhere on top. And this is ready to go into our oven. Again, 375, 180 degrees Celsius for about 30 to 45 minutes until everything gets nice and incorporated and cooked in together. And our bechamel becomes brown and blistered, but not burnt, brown and blistered and fantastic. I'll see you in a bit. I'll let you know how it turns out. My friends, this is it. This is what we've all been waiting for. The birth of my moussaka. It is now officially ready. It's just out of the oven. I get emotional. I get like so excited at times like these. This is done to absolute perfection. I'm taking this to my friends this evening for a pre-Thanksgiving dinner. Greeks, Thanksgiving, naturally, it's moussaka. So, very easy to do. It's not really complicated. There is some legwork involved, but if you organize yourself, get your shit together, you should have no problem whatsoever making this. I'm not even gonna attempt to slice this because it's gonna become like a runny, soupy mess. But I will tell you that all the layers, everything is done to perfection. It is absolutely amazing. Slice and fry up your eggplant and potato. Prepare your meat sauce. Make your bechamel and put it all together. Bake it off 375 for about 30-45 minutes, give or take. The ultimate goal is to have the top of your moussaka looking brown and crusty and blistered. So that's it for this episode on my classic, unadulterated, untarnished, whatever messed up, mixed up moussaka. This is the traditional, classic Yaya's moussaka that you'll find in the Greek villages. And I hope you try this. It'll feed a crowd. Everybody will love this. Until next time, I'm Ken. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate your time. Please smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Please share this video. Even if you don't cook, somebody else that does will really, really enjoy this. And you know what? If they're your friend, you will too. So until next time, thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.